Do you guys remember when Drake Bell fled the country a couple of years ago? No? All right, anyways, the NFL playoffs are about to start, and we are here to review Week 18 of the NFL season. Welcome back to the First Goal Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Gold, and man, what a wild final week we had. Said goodbye to Red Zone. You know, I talk about it all the time, how sad it is when Scott Hansen does his sign-offs. He even had like a little slideshow presentation this time, thanking every single worker. So that was pretty cool. But look, we got a lot to cover. Teams firing coaches, the draft order, the playoff picture, teams getting heartbroken, teams making it in. So there's so much to talk about. And with that being said, before we get to the 2-minute drill, like always, our final bold take shout out of the regular season. You guys can still comment down below on this video for the playoffs. But last week, you guys had you comment down a bold or hot take about the season. So let's see. The winner this week was Matteo Corradini 1215 with this hot take. Here we go. Chiefs lose in the divisional round. No doubt they're good, but I think their flaws as a team will be heavily noticed against their opponents, and Black Magic can't save them now. Yeah, look, I mean, obviously you're sending this to a Chiefs fan, so I would love to disagree with you. Obviously, like, when you have this much success, and in Patrick Mahomes' career, he has never not been to at least the AFC Championship game, you have it stuck in your head that at some point, the Chiefs are going to have to lose in an earlier playoff round or even miss the playoffs. But obviously this year they made the playoffs to get a bye. So to go 15-1 and be one and done in the playoffs, even though obviously we're all spoiled as Chiefs fans and we back-to-back Super Bowls, 15-1 record, that would suck. That would absolutely suck, and I would not be expecting it at all. So, look, I mean, you're using the phrase Black Magic, so I just assume you don't think the Chiefs are a good team at all. But even though you said, look, I think they're good, yeah, but when you say stuff like Black Magic, I just throw you in with the same herd of people that just claim the Chiefs are just cheating or whatever. So, but with that being said, let's get into the 2-minute drill. All right, here we go. Final 2-minute drill of the regular season. Browns-Ravens 35-10. The Ravens took care of business like we all thought was going to happen. Congrats to them. They won their division. Okay, Texans-Titans 23-14. This game is big. We'll get to this later on. The Titans secure the first overall pick. That's big. And then the Texans kind of just get a nice win to show that they were one game better statistically than last season. I guess that's really all that came with that. Giants-Eagles 20-13. This game was very meaningless for both teams. The Giants were not competing for the number 1 overall pick anyways, and the Eagles already had the 2 seed locked up, so it was kind of whatever. Jags-Colts, another game that was pretty pointless. The Jags also not competing for the first pick. They lost this game. It went into overtime. I love when completely pointless games go into overtime just because it's like, you know, nobody other than the fans that paid to be there. Like, the coaches just want to get out of there as quick as possible. So, of course, Jags-Colts was an extra time. But the Colts win at 26-23, moved to 8-9 on the season. Commanders-Cowboys, this almost made the cut. The Commanders slip into the 6th seed. Very good for them. They won on a last-second touchdown to Terry McLaurin. Marcus Mariota playing for possibly another backup contract. So, nice job by him. Had a few really nice plays. Overall, the game was close, but obviously for the Cowboys, it didn't really matter. But congrats to the Cowboys, securing the 6th seed. Bears-Packers, another game that just missed the cut. Packers lost to the Bears for the first time in 11 straight games. It was the exact same scenario as the Bears playing the Packers back in mid-season when the Bears had a field goal set up. I thought for sure they were going to miss it. Last time it got blocked. But look, they actually overcame something. I know it really doesn't mean that much. The Packers are still the 7th seed, and the Bears are horrible this season. But look, I guess a positive to break a 10-game losing streak. Bills-Patriots. The Patriots lose the number 1 overall pick. We'll get more into that, but they did beat the Bills 23-16. Chargers-Raiders 34-20. Chargers get the 5th seed. We'll talk about that more later. Cardinals, 49ers. The Cardinals just throwing up 47 on a random Week 18 Sunday. Good for them. Dolphins, Jets, 32-20. We're going to talk a little more about Aaron Rodgers and the game itself later, but I figured I'd put that out there just to say sayonara to the Dolphins as they miss the playoffs. Okay, that was a little bit longer than 2 minutes. But look, if you're a fan of any of those teams I mentioned that are eliminated now, probably not going to be talking about them until the offseason, so kind of felt like it was a nice little send-off there right at the end. I know I didn't mention the Seahawks as well, but we're going to get to the Rams in a couple points as well, and we'll mention the Seahawks quickly. There you go. Goodbye to so many teams that, so many teams, so many stadiums, so many announcers we're not going to hear again until September. Even Scott Hansen at the end of the Red Zone was like, and until next September, goodbye. And it's just like, man, just absolutely heartbreaking. So, yeah, that sucks, but we got some stuff to talk about because the playoff picture's set. And before we get to the playoffs itself, let's talk about coaches getting fired very quickly. Now, teams that we knew were already going to fire their coaches, or even replace interim coaches. We know that the Saints and the Jets and the Bears have to replace their interim. Those are coaches that already got fired mid-season. But just some guys who got fired in the last couple days. Gerard Mayo of the Patriots. Now, I didn't know too much about Gerard Mayo as a coach because I just don't follow the Patriots that closely like that. It's not even the fact that he's a terrible coach or anything. I think the organization just knows they have a really, really good chance of getting Mike Vrabel as their head coach. And I think, look, he's got more experience. He just seems like a better leader. It feels like that's the better option if it's really viable to get him. And it's just tough for Gerard Mayo. I know it was only one season, but, look, it's their decision. Clearly, he wasn't good enough. The Jaguars fired Doug Peterson. Everybody saw that coming. The Bengals fire, almost every assistant coach you can think of. Defensive coordinator, which, by the way, Lou Anarumo, I get the Bengals defense was historically bad for a large portion of this season, but they got better as the season went on. And I'm sorry, Lou Anarumo was not the problem on this team. It was Zach Taylor, and the Bengals need to look themselves in the mirror and realize, no, this is a much broader issue. It's the top of the snake, which is Zach Taylor. He needs to be fired. He hasn't been fired yet, which is crazy. They also fire their O-line coach, their linebacker coach, so they're starting to clean house there as well. A couple teams announced that they're keeping their coach and their general manager. The Colts announced that. The Dolphins announced that, which, if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think Mike McDaniel deserves his job right now. He just doesn't seem... It's a weird phrase to use, but it does make sense in football terms. He just doesn't seem like a leader of men, if that makes sense. I'm sorry. Do you see Mike McDaniel standing out there in the cold? He just doesn't seem like a guy that's going to rally everybody together and really put on a performance when it matters most. I mean, they just seem like a soft team. And he just has the same 5 plays in his playbook that were great for one season. It felt like all these new concepts, awesome. Tyreek Hill, fastest team in the NFL, whatever. And then, oh, great, you got a full offseason of film on Mike McDaniel. It looks like they're stale and they're not as good. So I don't agree with that. And then finally, the New York Giants keeping Brian Daboll, totally fine. I think he's a fine head coach. He's not the problem. But keeping Joe Shane as your general manager when you literally have video proof now on Hard Knocks of how that guy managed the whole offseason and that debacle, insane. Insane. The Maras are one of the worst owners in the NFL. They got to give the team up. I mean, hell, we went to Giants games. We even saw the little banner floating around on the plane around the stadium saying, Mr. Mara, please clean house. Or I forget what the phrase was, but it was basically asking him to step down from the organization because it was just getting so bad. Yeah, and I believe that's it. I don't know if the Raiders have fired Antonio Pierce yet. We're filming this Monday at 4:30 p.m. right now. I haven't checked yet. I don't think he's been fired, though, which, man, I'm a little bit surprised. He definitely should be fired. But we'll see. I mean, the Cardinals announced Jonathan Gannon is going to remain their head coach. So a lot of movement going on. Today is technically called Black Monday, which is where a lot of people get fired after their season ends. So a lot to be on the lookout for that. But let's move to the Titans getting the first pick. I briefly mentioned in the 2-minute drill. And look, as a Chiefs fan, selfishly, I love that the Titans got the first pick because we made a trade to give them L'Jarius Sneed. And they give us their 3rd round pick. And great, now we have round 3, pick 1 on our hands going into this draft. So we'll take it. I think it's the 66th overall pick. So Brett Veach, another genius move. Awesome. But I think the main story of this isn't just the Titans getting the 1st round pick. It's the fact that the Patriots pulled the Texans from a couple years ago. Except the Patriots don't need a quarterback, which that's a reason why people are like, okay, it's totally fine that they won and they don't have the first pick. But the Patriots, man, obviously now the Titans are going to pick a quarterback. They're not going to trade out of that pick. But the Patriots could have just gotten an absolute haul for that 1st overall pick, traded back. They could have gotten so many other compensatory picks, players if they wanted to. I know they were even in talks possibly with trading with the Titans, getting Calvin Ridley, a few draft picks, stuff like that. They could have easily done business with these other teams. Now, they're still going to have the 3rd pick, I believe, which is solid. I get it. Like, obviously, no team wants to tank because players are out there for incentives. They're out there to get new contracts. They're not just going to fold on their team. People just hate losing in general. Like, if you're on a team where you know you're not going to stay on it for a long time and everybody else is like, oh, we got to tank, we got to think about the franchise. None of those players give a shit about the franchise. They're looking out for themselves. To the people that think tanking's real in football, it's not. And this was just proof of it once again. Like, the players are out there to play. They want to beat a divisional opponent at home to end the season. You can't ignore the outcome, which is, yeah, it just ruined probably a pretty ample opportunity. Now, look, teams could still trade up to the 3rd pick. There's plenty of teams behind them that need a quarterback, so this might not end up being too bad after all, but getting that 1st overall pick is a lot of responsibility, and it could have ended up being really good. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. That whole top 10, top 18 of the draft is now set. We'll get more into that in the offseason. But let's get into a few of these games. Let's start with the whole Chiefs, Broncos, Bengals trying to get into the playoffs, Dolphins trying to get in the playoffs, kind of triangle of games there. And here's the funny thing. I don't even want to get into the games that much itself because, look, the Bengals won 19-17 against the Steelers. They took care of business on Saturday night. It was a close one. Another heart attack. Joe Burrow actually didn't play that well. It was more the defense that came out on top. Russell Wilson blew it. Players were dropping passes. George Pickens looked terrible. Pat Freiermuth blew it at the end there. Russell Wilson was making weird decisions on the ground. So definitely just a faulty game where both teams felt like they were trying to give it away. But the Bengals come out on top, thus relying on the Chiefs and the Jets to win it. Obviously, the Jets, like, they came out on top 32-20. Aaron Rodgers throws 4 touchdown passes in what is possibly his final game of his career. Whether you like Aaron Rodgers or not, if you're someone of my age who's grown up watching those quarterbacks their entire lives, you know, the Aaron Rodgers, the Peyton Manning, the Tom Brady's, like, obviously it's sad. You don't want to see a legend walk away from the game because it's nostalgic. It's something you're used to. He was a great player. But it seems like the right time, you know, to happen if it does. We'll get into way more Aaron Rodgers conversations as the offseason moves on. There's going to be tons of stuff on that. But it was nice. Look, he hit his 500th touchdown mark in his career. One was to Devontae Adams for the last time, threw 4 touchdown passes. And guess what? A little trivia for you guys. What do Aaron Rodgers and Eli Manning have in common? They both ended their season at a home win in MetLife against the Dolphins. So there you go. If that's true, if Aaron Rodgers does retire. So there's a little piece of trivia. But okay, here's what I'm setting this all up for. Obviously, the Chiefs go into Denver and lose 38-0, which I'm just laughing because it's like, look, I knew pretty much in the back of my mind they were going to lose this game regardless. The Broncos are a good team. Like, even if we have our backups and our backups play decent, like, we're just not talented enough to play them. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Carson Wentz had under 100 yards in this game, and our offense had literally 0 notable plays, and our defense was horrible. But here's what I really want to get into. Bengals fans. Oh, gosh. And I'm going to try to resort to not being too mean on this podcast because I don't want all the Bengals fans to just hate me off the bat. I know it's a sensitive topic for them whenever the Chiefs are just come up on their For You page or whatever. But I have to just get this off my chest. Now, if people that watch the videos know, my dad is a huge Bengals fan, and I like the Bengals for that reason and that reason only. But man, is there a team that makes it any harder for me to dislike them than the rest of their fans, the players, the organization, the cockiness. And I have some tweets pulled up because this is getting ridiculous. I understand if Bengals fans hate the Chiefs because why wouldn't they? I mean, we all hated the Patriots when they were good. I hate my division rivals. Like, it's totally fine. You could hate the Chiefs. I don't care about that. But the level of delusion and cope that was going on online last night was insanity. And this needs to stop. I'm sorry. Like, I try not to let this get to me all off season or all during the season because most of it's just ridiculous. And this is ridiculous too. But people have coined this phrase, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on the podcast before, as Chiefs derangement syndrome. And it's getting out of hand. I mean, the Chiefs have broken so many people's brains over the past season or 2 or 3, and it's ridiculous. Let me just get back to some things that I've screenshotted from these Bengals fans. Let's start. I'm not gonna shout anybody out. I'll keep it anonymous. But here we go. First one. Celebrating getting your ass whooped by a division rival is a character choice. Football gods will punish them. Patience. Okay, do you know what context is by any chance? Do you even know why maybe possibly we'd be celebrating this at all? We're not even celebrating this. We just don't care. Like, I can't even start with this right now. It's just celebrating. Who's celebrating, by the way? Who's celebrating? The only thing we'd be celebrating is the fact that our players all got to rest. Okay? We don't care that it's a divisional rival if it means securing the 1 seed and everybody rest up for the playoffs. So, first of all, just learn what context is. Second of all, this person tweets, which the first line is just incorrect. Only 2 teams were in the race for a wild card. The Broncos and Bengals. No, the Dolphins are also in there, so learn the NFL if you've been paying attention this season. Okay, they go, the NFL knew that. They have a responsibility to franchises to ensure all starters play with exception to injury. Had the Chiefs played a non-race contender, no big deal to sit the starters. So then why is it an issue when the Chiefs do it, but you're not having a single tweet about the Bills or the Rams, or any other team over the last 100 years that have secured a playoff spot that do the smart thing and rest their starters going into the playoffs? Why is it only an issue when the Chiefs do it, huh? Oh, maybe it's because you're just so deranged from your Chiefs hate over the years, and you're just coping with a horrible loss because your team couldn't get in on your own instead of relying on your rival team to try and help you get you in. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, keep tweeting out of your ass. And this person responds with a very logical, normal response. So instead of making sure they came out of yesterday's game healthy and rested for the playoffs, you think they should have risked it after going 15-1, not having a bye since week 6, and playing 3 games in 11 days. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to shout this person out because they're right. Lauren, you're normal, Lauren. And this is, hopefully it's just Twitter and that it's just a few bad apples and that if I go out and talk to Bengals fans in real life, they're not all like this because I don't want to pin people against each other, okay? But what I'm reading online, I'm sorry, it's just insane at this point. It's just cope. Look, I understand if people are angry that the Bengals can't make the playoffs and whatever they needed to get in didn't happen. But you shouldn't have put yourself there in the first place, Bengals. You shouldn't have lost to the Patriots in week 1. Your punter shouldn't have messed up the kick. You shouldn't have committed an obvious pass interference against us in week 2. You shouldn't have done all those things, all right? So quit complaining. Go to Cancun and shut up. Last tweet. This is from Robert Griffin III. So this is an actual analyst who's on TV, and this is not the only one. This is the only analyst I screenshotted. There was plenty of other guys, professionals, that were saying the same thing. Chiefs did everything they could to make sure the Bengals didn't make the playoffs. My God. What are we supposed to do? Why in what world are we starting our starters when we literally had a 3-game stretch in 11 days? And we're finally getting the rest we needed after one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. We played on every single day of the week except for Tuesday. And you're complaining that we want a little bit of rest for the playoffs for a meaningless game. And Bengals fans, and RG3 is obviously not a Bengals fan, but this is just in general. Bengals fans are so entitled and think the Bengals are the center of the universe that the Chiefs give 2 shits about the Bengals making the playoffs. And it's so funny when people make the excuse of the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals. I'm sorry, do they not have to go into Buffalo in the wild card round? You think you guys are going to beat Buffalo, first of all? Like, I'm sorry. It's just crazy. Even a Broncos fan comes in after RG3's comment and defends us, which if a Broncos fan is defending us, yeah, that's when you know these people are insane. He goes, what a lowbrow thing to say. The Bengals should have won more games. They didn't. It's not Casey's responsibility to get them in. Pathetic. I agree. Like, it's just crazy. The Chiefs won 15 games. The Bengals won 9. The Chiefs, you could say the Chiefs won 15 games and rested their starters to make sure the Bengals didn't make the playoffs. Well, you could say the Bengals lost 8 games to make sure they didn't make the playoffs. So, I don't know what else you want to use. It's just cope. It's just the Chiefs' hatred. and people are going to be like, oh, this guy's pissed. Bengals are living rent-free. Once again, you're just proving my point. If someone comments that, you're just proving my point of thinking you're the center of the universe. But it's just, there's no way these people exist. It has to just be Cope. It's just got to be the... And I understand if you're angry. Obviously, I'd be angry too. Like, I was angry when the Chiefs sucked. Like, you know what I mean? The Chiefs couldn't get it done. It's the same thing. And we're going to go back to those days where the Chiefs suck in 10 years. And I'll feel the same way. But I won't make these dumb excuses where there's absolutely no logic being used. It's the tinfoil hats. It all stems from the same people that hate them so much that they think the whole league is rigged and everything. So, yes, they're rigging the league by making us play 3 games in 10 days, getting a bye in week 6, and having the toughest schedule in the NFL. Sure. Anyways, let's move on. The Bengals are erased from our memories in 2024. Enjoy Cancun. The Chiefs will be enjoying their bye week now. Going back to me mentioning that the Rams and the Bills also bench their players, I thought the Rams were benching their players because they were already locked into the 3 seed. No, they moved down. They lost that game with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. I don't know why they were resting most of their starters. The fact that they lost, now they got to go play Minnesota instead of the Commanders. I don't know about that decision. I mean, they're still hosting a playoff game and they're fine, but crazy. Okay, anyways, let's move on to our last 2 points. That was a rant. I understand that. People are going to be angry at me. I don't care. NFC South was decided. The Bucs win the division for the 4th year in a row, and things were looking pretty spicy towards halftime. It was 16-6. The Saints were up. They even put up the scoreboard in the Falcons game. It gave them a little extra juice. And I guess at this point, even though it's disappointing for the Falcons how their season ended, like, it's almost better that they ended up just losing that game anyways, to just know that it wouldn't have mattered, you know, even if the Bucs did lose because they lost. Which, by the way, both games, fantastic. Great witching hour to end off the season in the 1 o'clock window. But man, I mean, where do I start? I guess I could start with Bucs Saints. Baker Mayfield made a couple of the best throws I've seen in a long, long time in clutch situations. That throw on 4th and 8 was beautiful to Jalen McMillan. And then that touchdown pass on the run for about 25 yards was just perfect. You could just tell Baker, like, he just wants it so bad. And at the end of the day, like, even if they don't have the talent on defense to get it done and move up in the playoffs, like, this was another successful season. The Bucs were right in paying Baker Mayfield. They won another double-digit game season. They won their division. They're hosting a playoff game. Mike Evans, congrats to him, 11th straight 1,000-yard season. That was awesome at the end of the game to see him get his incentive, keep the streak alive. Everybody was so happy for him. If I had to guess, Mike Evans is definitely the most beloved Buck of all time, I'm sure, to the fans. I would say he's definitely top 2. But man, like, yeah, it just sucks for the Falcons to... I don't know if they showed the score at any more other point, except for towards the end when it was pretty much over. But, like, when you see 16-6 and then you find out that the Bucs ended up winning that game, you're just like, what the hell happened? And... man, so perfect for the Saints to screw over the Falcons one last time. Like, they just hate each other, those two teams. And, gosh, like, look, you got to give it up to the Panthers. Bryce Young was 1 overtime touchdown away from having 6 touchdowns in this game. He still had 5, which is insanity. I mean, what a way to go out on a season where early on it felt like your career was basically over, and now you're not looking to get a quarterback in the draft. Your offense looked awesome. Adam Thielen looked awesome. Chuba Hubbard's going to come back healthier than ever with a new contract next year. It's just great vibes for the Panthers. You upset a division rival, went into overtime, scored 44 points. And look, with the Falcons, obviously it was disappointing yesterday, but we all know you guys really screwed up your season when you blew a 17-7 lead last week against the Commanders. So I'm not that shocked you missed the playoffs. One last thing I'll say about the Falcons is Michael Penix, man. Maybe it's just because you played the Panthers, but he was awesome yesterday. Now, he had a couple mistakes here and there. That makes sense. But the throws he was making, he was throwing ropes. Him, and shout out Joe Milton, who I did shout out in our Combine video, if you go back and watch that. Rocket arm. That guy was awesome yesterday. I always thought he was great coming out of the draft, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, Michael Penix. Look, if there's one thing I can say about the Falcons, is that if you can somehow clean up that defense, which, by the way, was horrific yesterday, and you got to get that shit figured out stat, because you don't want to waste these great offensive players you got. Tariq London was awesome. Bijan was amazing. Your offensive line is solid. Look, Michael Penix looks good. I know it's only 2-game sample size, but he already off the bat looks like he gives a much bigger spark to this team. So we'll see what happens. But there you go. Bucks lock up the South. We got one more topic to talk about. I'm sure Al doesn't want to hear it, unfortunately. Max, my brother, if you're watching, close your ears. At least you're still in the playoffs. But, of course, it's Vikings Lions. I don't really like this score, 31-9. Chiefs fans know what I'm talking about. But, yep, I mean, on paper, it was a blowout. If we want to get into the nitty-gritty, let's start with the first half of this game, which is crazy because it was 10-6 Lions going into halftime, but I felt like the Vikings kind of outplayed the Lions in big chunks of that first half, and it really trickles down. The reason why they weren't winning at halftime is because of two things: Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell, which sucks because they were one of the two biggest reasons why they were 14-2 going into this game. And, man, I'm sorry. Like, I just feel like an idiot. I really do. I fell for it. I fell for the Vikings. Once again, I do this every time the Vikings are good. And I really legitimately thought this was the best team they had since 1998. And, look, they play the Rams in the wild card. I'm still probably going to pick them. I don't think their season's completely over. But the fact, I just knew there was a small chance this could happen. And of course it did in the biggest moment of their franchise in a very long time. They go out there and just shit the bed, especially in the second half. And Sam Darnold looked like Sam Darnold of the Jets. He didn't look comfortable. He wasn't making quick decisions on his first reads. There were guys that were open. He just wasn't stepping up and making those throws like he usually does. Wasn't taking advantage of the defense that was tired after his own defense would give them opportunities. They played great in the first half. They were intercepting it. That should have been a safety where Jared Goff was throwing it away in the end zone. I don't know why that wasn't called a safety. Even Sam Darnold got face masks. There was some iffy ref things in the first half, but it's fine. It ended up being a blowout. The Lions won it fair and square. Let's go to Kevin O'Connell as well. It wasn't just Sam Darnold's fault. Now, look, every single decision he had to make, whether it was going for it on fourth down or taking the points, except for one time, he made the wrong decision every single time. And the one time I'm talking about is the first 4th and goal that they had of the game, because it was 7-0. There was a certain type of momentum you had to keep up with the Lions. You kind of had to show them, hey, we can do the same thing as you. You got to be aggressive. Sure, first one, how much do you have to lose? There's so much left of the game after this decision you're going to make. That maybe you can make up for it. So why not? Go for the touchdown. But it was the play calling. It was the fact that they passed it, I'm pretty sure, all 4 times. It just wasn't working. They didn't even try the run once. They didn't even try any RPOs, quick passes, screens. They just let Sam Darnold sit there and not be able to make a decision. So that's what really screwed it up. And then when they finally took the field goals, I was like, it might be too late. Like, you got to go for it. So it just felt like Kevin O'Connell was getting in his head a lot. And they were just making the wrong decisions. And that's really what put them behind. And look, even though the Lions kind of were outplayed in the first half and still had the lead, it says a lot about the Lions. But, you know, if you keep making the wrong decisions, if you're the Vikings and Sam Darnold's not playing up to par, eventually the Lions are going to break through. They have enough talent. The Vikings defense got tired. And the Lions are just going to end up scoring. Like, who wants, after you're doing so much for the team in the first half, and the Vikings offense just keeps handing the ball back to the Lions, and you're out there so many times as a defender, like, at some point, you're not going to want to tackle Jahmyr Gibbs. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to want to cover Sam Laporta, who's 6'5" or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what happens. And eventually, the bigger talent is going to come through, and the Lions did it, and they secured the first 1 seed of their franchise. So, look, I got to give it up to them. I doubted them a little bit. It feels like now they're back to being the front runner in the NFC. Alex Anzalone came back. Their defense looked a lot better. So we'll see what happens. But that's huge for them. Now the Vikings have to go on the road. I'm sorry, Al. I know it sucks. Maybe we can hold out just a little more hope for the rest of the season. But, yeah, they really fooled me. And they pulled me in. And they spit me out. So it's going to be tough to pick the Vikings again. But there you go. That was Week 18. That was wild. We still got so much of the season left, so please be on the lookout for all of our playoff videos coming up. We got our predictions. And don't forget to comment down below your bold take of the week. We'll pin the best comment and shout them out on the next week's episode. But that's it. That's your Week 18. The regular season is done. We're on to the playoffs. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, interact with us, and follow us at First and Gold on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. I'm Sam Gold. We'll see you next episode. Goodbye.